Okay, this is a review of how to fill out Schedule B. Okay, and I make a warning for non-clients that this video is for informational and educational purposes only. You need to rely on the advice of your attorney. The analysis and effect of the law changes often. This information is to get you further along, but the speaker disavows any liability for error or change. Okay, let's take a look at Schedule B. Schedule B is one of the longer documents you must complete when filing for bankruptcy and is an important part of the schedules of assets and liabilities. On Schedule B, a debtor must list all of his or her personal property. Personal property is defined as including all property except for real property, such as houses, land, and timeshares. Real property is disclosed on Schedule A. Okay, we use the Schedule B for we use the same form whether you're filing a Chapter 7 liquidation or a Chapter 13 repayment plan, and the answers you will have will be the same for either one. Okay, if you have already filed your case because of an emergency defense or foreclosure of foreclosure or repossession, then you must list the information accurately as it was when you filed. If you have not yet filed, then you can prepare this and complete it as it will be on the day that you file. Please disclose all property. No items of personal property are worth a charge of bankruptcy fraud. Okay, the method of disclosure. Schedule B consists of 5 columns. The first column is entitled Type of Property. In that column is listed 35 pre-made categories of property, such as wearing apparel, for clothing, or automobiles, and we'll go through each one of those. Okay, the second column is called None, and if you have none of the item, then put an X in that column. As I'll show here. Description and location of property. Make a list a description and the location of the property. If it's at your home, you can just say that it's at your home. But if it's not located nearby, then do list the location of the property. Okay, the next column says husband, wife, joint, or community. In this column, you must put a H, W, J, or C if there's any division on the property. If it's belonging to the husband solely or the wife solely, then put H or W for that. If you own the property jointly with another person, a co-tenancy or co-ownership situation, then you put J. If it's owned by the husband and wife, then put community, particularly if it's in a community property state, like Texas. Okay, then finally, the fifth column requires the debtor to list the current value of his or her interest in the property. Okay, that is his or her interest, but you don't deduct for the for any secured claim or note that might be on the property at this time. Okay, for this is a good time to talk about value. In this column, I use what I would call the garage sale value. Don't put the amount that you paid for it, or the sentimental value, or the amount that it would take to replace the item. Put the value as if it were sold at a garage sale at this time. Okay, finally, now it's a good time to talk about exemptions. Exemptions go in Schedule C. Much of the property that you have will be protected by a federal or state statute, protected from creditors. Of course, property that was put up as collateral in order to purchase the property, it's not protected from the creditor that lent you money to buy it. But otherwise, it is most of the property is protected from claims of other creditors and the trustee, who essentially represents the other creditors. Exemptions goes on Schedule C, and you'll need to have your attorney counsel you on which of the items of property in Schedule B and Schedule A are exempt and what statute makes them exempt. Okay, let's go ahead and look through these categories, and I divide them up a little bit and first address the ones that you're most likely to have. Everybody's going to have certain items, and then we'll get into explaining some of the things that most people may or may not have, but we'll take a little bit more explanation. Okay, number one, cash on hand. This requires that the debtor list any cash in their possession at the time the bankruptcy petition is filed. This item is probably not going to be exempt, so this is where I would suggest paying the attorney to do the filing or pay for your filing fees. Perhaps some other uses of cash that you have at the time. Again, you cannot hide it. You cannot send it to anybody else to hide for you. You need to disclose it. But if you're making regular purchases in the ordinary course of business, like your fuel for the week, your gas, filling your gas tank for the coming week or two, or you're buying your groceries or paying utilities that are due now, not past due utilities, but the ones that for your current bill, those all would be appropriate uses of cash on hand in order to reduce how much cash is available and non-exempt. Okay, likewise, checking, savings, and other financial accounts. Again, you can't hide or remove those or dispose of them. In addition, particularly if you're coming up and preparing for a filing, writing a check does not remove it from your bank account. Okay, if you're planning on filing, then you would want to do a cashier's check or a money order in making payments to current expenses. Otherwise, if you write a check and that has not cleared the bank, then technically the funds are still there and available and probably not exempt. So go ahead, for a short period of time as you're preparing, go ahead and make your payments with cashier's checks or money order, pulling the money out of the bank and sending it in to whoever your supplier is. Okay, number 3, security deposits with public utilities, telephone companies, landlords, etc. Go ahead and list those with the name and amount. Okay, household goods and furnishings, including audio, video, and computer equipment. I use a particular amount to kind of group household goods and some of the other items that are coming up. You don't want to sit there and list every fork in the drawer or every plate in your kitchen. On the other hand, you probably can't use an amount or a group that says all of my household goods and furnishings and then say, well, that's some amount like $30,000. I think the trustee is going to want you to be somewhat more specific than that. I pick an amount of, say, $500. If you can make a group that's that much or less, then call it, like I said, kitchen utensils, or probably all the kitchen goods, maybe $500 in valuation. If there were certain things that were more than that $500, like a refrigerator, then you should go ahead and separate that one item out and combine all the others in groups up to $500. Okay, books, pictures, art objects, same thing. This was probably made at a time when your compact discs were more collectible, but any groups of items like that would go on number 5. Wearing apparel, clothing, again, if you've got separate groups that raise it above $500, then separate those sums so you've got a particular group: husband's clothing, wife's clothing. Perhaps if husband was wearing suits to the office, then those might need to be divided up somewhat to make these groups. Furs and jewelry, likewise, a large set of costume jewelry doesn't need to be divided up, but if you've got individual furs, yes, they do. Name them and locate them. Okay, firearms and sports equipment, again, you can group smaller, less expensive items together. Usually on your firearms, you're going to want to go ahead and list each one individually. Okay, that's up to number 8. From there, let's skip on up to 25, and we'll come back to these others. Okay, 25 is automobiles, trucks, and trailers. For that, go ahead and put in each one, and the current value you can look up in ADA Blue Book. Or nowadays you may be able to get it off the internet at the Kelly Blue Book site. Okay, similar thing for boats, motors, and accessories. If you have those, go ahead and list each of those. And check out a line for aircraft and accessories. It's an item not many of us have, but if you do, it's a similar situation of just listing the item and the current used value. Okay, let's go back to number 17. Alimony, maintenance, support, and property settlements. Okay, this is where you would be receiving the payments. And in this, I think you should have a case number, if there is a case number, an amount per month, and please state whether or not these amounts are being kept current. Many are, but if they're not being kept current, then please disclose that. Okay, next, 18 is other liquidated debts owed to debtors, including tax refunds. Liquidated means that it's a particular amount. If there's a judgment that you're entitled to and it has a particular amount, then that's going to be a liquidated debt. List the court case, the dates, and what the amounts are. Okay, it looks like from there we go to 21, and we'll come back to these other ones. Other contingent and unliquidated debts. Okay, the unliquidated claims means that there's not a specific amount. Say this might be for a personal injury claim or an employment related claim where you feel like you have the claim but you don't know exactly what the amount would be. So go ahead and list that in number 21. If it is a court case, list the number and the location of the court. If you have an attorney that you've hired already for that, go ahead and list that attorney and some contact information there in number 21. Okay, then let's back up a little bit. 20. Contingent and non-contingent interest in the estate of a decedent. Now these are inheritances or insurance policy receipts or trust. And back up a little bit more. 19. Equitable and future interest, life estates, and rights of powers exercisable for the benefit of the debtor other than those listed in real property. Most of your life estates, if you had those, they would be related to real property. You may want to talk to your attorney to help define anything that you think you might have along these lines. Okay, let's slide back here to number 9. Interest in insurance policies. If you have an insurance policy on your life or for any other provision like long-term disability, then you need to list that here. Okay, if you have a term life insurance policy, the value of that is going to be 0. But you do need to list that you have that policy. Again, the value is 0. Now, if you have a whole life policy, that will have a surrender value, so you need to contact the insurance company to determine what that value is. Alright, number 10, annuities. In an annuity, it's similar to insurance. It's a situation where you or somebody else has paid in money and you're expecting a return from an insurance company either every month now, or if it is to start at some later date or after some event. Okay, then 11. Interest in an education IRA. Okay, go ahead and list these, whether they are owned by you, something that you've set up, or if they are for your benefit. List as to when they were created, what the value is, and who they are intended to support. Okay, next is interest in retirement funds. It's number 12. IRA, ERISA, KEO, or other pension or profit sharing plans. If you have one of these at work, go ahead and get a description of the property, whether it is vested, and what the value is at this time. Okay, now we go through a list of business assets, and we'll eventually get to agricultural assets as well. So let's go through 13 to 16 first. Stock and interest in an incorporated or unincorporated business. List that and estimated valuation for that. Interest in partnerships or joint ventures. If you have questions about whether a particular venture that you're involved in is a partnership, then go ahead and ask your attorney on that. Government and corporate bonds or other negotiable and non-negotiable instruments. Anything that the government is going to be obligated to pay you. Okay, accounts receivable. If you are running a business or have run a business and you still have to collect payments, that would be accounts receivable. Okay, let's go down to number 22. Patents, copyrights, and other intellectual properties. 23, licenses, franchise, and other intangibles. Usually this is where you've signed a business contract and you've got the right to use a particular name or brand of an item. Okay, another business asset would be number 24, customer list, or anything that you feel like is a business asset. Then let's go down to 28, office equipment, furnishings and supplies. If you've been running a business, you may have these items. If the business has closed down and you still have these items, go ahead and list those as well. Then machinery, fixtures, equipment, and supplies used in business. Then lastly, inventory, all business type items. Now we'll hit a few agricultural items. Animals. What they're really talking about there is agricultural animals, cattle, your pigs and your chickens, etc. Certainly if you have those, you need to list those and get an approximate value for those. As far as pets, I see people list them. I think it's rare that the typical pet is going to have a value, and so go ahead and list that and put, I would suggest putting 0 on it. Okay, then, but crops, if you have crops in the field, go ahead and list those as to what types and when they might be harvested. Farming equipment and implements, farming supplies and feed. Okay, let me mention at this point, if you were sitting out here with farming equipment, that you might want to consider a family farmer bankruptcy, which is chapter 12, and go over that with your attorney if that was the case of having an agricultural business ongoing. Okay, 35, the last one, other personal property of any kind not already listed, itemize. Okay, well, thank you. If you're our client, then please contact us about any questions that you might have.